excited.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Please. Mr. Sabi sir, in case you are busy, please come and remain handy. Now already we are familiar with this. Without any ado, let's start with the Krishna session, please. Nawal Khan sir, have you organized them already? Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Naveed and I'm not Ahmadi. But last year I was with one of my friends at his place and there I picked up a book by Mirza Ghulam Ahmed and I read a verse in it. Sad hazaran Yusufe binam darin chahe zakin.
Right?
Sad hazaran Yusufe binam darin.
Come closer to the microphone.
Last year I was with one of my friends and I picked up a book there and I read a verse
in the Persian, please do. Read the verse in the Persian language which you want to make the subject of inquiry.
Yeah, and the verse was Sad hazaran Yusufe binam darin chahe zakin. And I was so inspired after that I started reading about Ahmadiyyat. And I have 3 questions to put, if you allow it.
Please do.
My first question is, many Muslims believe that there is a Messiah, but he has not yet come. On the contrary, there are people like Ahmadis, they believe that promised Messiah has already come. But there are Muslims who don't believe in Messiah at all.
I know.
So, what does Quran say about it?
What is what?
What does Quran say about it?
The Quran has prophesied. And you're talking of the realization of prophecy. How could any verse be added to the Quran so that the Quran would say, now he has come? The prophecies are a matter of the past. So all who believe in the advent of Jesus Christ believe it on the authority of the Quran and Hadith. So all the Quran and Hadith will tell you he would come. The issue to be decided is whether he has come or not. For that you can ask questions. What are the proofs? What is the evidence that he has come actually? Correct?
Yep, that's right.
Is that what you would like to inquire?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, please sit down. There's so many proofs in the favor of Hazrat Masih Maud being the promised Messiah. But the most crucial point to be settled first is, what is the true meaning of the descent of Jesus Christ from not heaven is not mentioned, but just Nuzul al-Masih, descent of Jesus. What is the meaning of that? Unless you resolve this question, it's impossible to identify the person who claims to be that Messiah. Then you have to refer to other signs mentioned in Ahadith which will appear before the coming of Jesus Christ. So if those signs are properly understood and if they are demonstrated to you to have come true, to have been realized, then the claimant to Messiahhood has to be right. If in the first instance you do not agree with the interpretation nuzul which we present with the help of the Quran, then the debate is useless, because then there is no question of Masih Maud being right. The most important thing hinges around the issue of nuzul, whether he will be the same person of 2,000 years ago who appeared among the Israelites, who is expected to descend, or whether somebody in his name is going to be born in the Ummah of Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam and is only to be entitled Messiah. You understand the point? Once this issue is settled, the remaining issues will become just small, ordinary. We believe, on the authority of the Holy Quran, that Jesus Christ of old, that is of the Ummah of Musa alayhi salam, is dead. He died a natural death, not on cross. He was attempted to be crucified, but they failed to murder him through crucifixion. He was redeemed by God, and he was saved from that accursed death. Then he was seen alive, moving about with the same wounds which were inflicted upon him by the act of crucifixion, by his own people. And there is enough evidence in the New Testament that his own disciples saw him moving about, but secretly, not in public. Most often under the cover of night. He avoided the daylight, in fact, because he did not want to be observed by his enemies. Now, there is such positive evidence on this issue that it's unthinkable to believe that he died once upon cross and then came to life again. It's absurd. If anybody is attempted to be murdered by any weapon, and within a few days he's seen alive walking around with the same wounds, no sane man can infer from that he must have died and then come to life again. So the concept of the Christians is rejected by the Bible, New Testament itself. But the concept presented by the Holy Quran is testified. Because the Holy Quran says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. They failed to murder him, they failed to crucify him. But the matter was obscured upon them. شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ means obscured. And the proof that shubbiha is used in this sense follows in the same verse. وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهُ. Those of the parties concerned who are in doubt about what happened to him are fi shak, are in doubt. So obscurity and doubt is one and the same thing. مَالَهُ وَمَالَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. They have no sure knowledge of what happened to Jesus Christ. إِلَّا اتِّبَاعَ الظَّنِّ. But only they are guessing. So if he was crucified, most certainly, and died upon cross, this is exactly what both parties agree. Where is the element of doubt about it? The element of doubt could only be created regarding his escape from death. And that is exactly what the Holy Quran says. They have no sure knowledge of his death upon cross. It's just a guesswork because the body was never recovered, because they themselves they agree that he is seen alive after the crucifixion, and because the Jews also have been demanding from Pilate the body of Jesus Christ, otherwise they wouldn't believe whether he has actually died upon cross or not. So this is the Ahmadiyya belief, that the evidence of the Quran is in favor, and the evidence of New Testament also is in favor of the Ahmadiyya concept that Jesus must have escaped death with the decree of God upon crucifixion. But then he must have died a natural death afterwards. So having finished this part, now we turn to the second part. If the Holy Quran is positively if the Holy Quran positively declares Jesus to be dead, to have died a natural death, then the second part is completed. In the first part, there is denial by the Holy Quran that he died upon the cross. That I have proved, there is enough evidence to prove that the Holy Quran is right. But what happened to him? Did he live eternally afterwards? If you are saved from an eternal murder, and this is what is claimed, how can you infer that after that you live forever and ever again? So what happened to that the Holy Quran refers in so many verses. And amazingly, Jesus is the only prophet of God about whose death there are so many verses. Because Allah knew that the Muslims will be in confusion about it. So he made it sure that no man has any genuine right to believe in his extraordinary longer span of life. So the verses I have in mind, I can quote one after the other. The first verse is about Jesus himself. Mal Masihu illa Rasul. Mal Masihu ibn Maryama illa Rasul. Masih, son of Mary, is nothing but a Rasul. And what happens to Rasul? Qad khalat min qablahi Rasul. All the prophets before him have passed away, they have died. So how could he be exempted from this? It is like the argument, but it is for man to err. And A, B, C are just men. They have made mistake. It is but human for people. It is but human to commit mistakes. So it is exactly the same style that when all the prophets before Jesus Christ have died, and he himself, is a prophet and no more than a prophet, he must have died. If any doubt is left, even after this, the same verse repels that doubt forever. It changes the subject in the same verse and speaks of the mother of Jesus Christ. What happened to her? It says, wa ummuhu siddiqa. His mother was a chaste lady. Kana yakulan tam. Both of them used to eat in the past. No more. Why did the mother of Jesus leave eating? Because she died. So did Jesus left eating in sympathy for his mother? It's absurd. Both have met the same fate. Both have been bracketed. So in fact there are two evidences, irrefutable evidences of Jesus' death in the same verse. One, because he was a prophet and the prophets have passed away. Second, because he was son of a mother who was chaste, but both of them have left eating. And the act of leaving eating can only happen if you are dead. Otherwise, while you are alive, you must continue to eat, if you are a man. So that is one verse of the Holy Quran which very clearly speaks of Jesus' death, but not on cross, after the crucifixion. The second verse of the same style is in fact a further evidence of Jesus' death, and both of them together are like two warriors which would not let Jesus go alive from between them. The other verse is وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad is nothing but a Rasul. قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ رُسُولٌ. The same part is repeated. All the prophets before him have passed away. Was Jesus before him or not? Was he a prophet or not? Must have passed away. And those who doubt about the meaning of khalat, first of all, they have no right to suggest that the khalat means just left. And even an ascent to heaven could be considered a khala. Because all the Arabic dictionaries, dependable, authoritative dictionaries, when you study them, will treat the word khala if it is mentioned alone by itself. Invariably, you'll find the meaning as mata, finished, dead. So when you say khala, it means just death. When you ask somebody, aapke walid sahab guzar gaye hain? It's like this. Nobody would believe that you think that you're asking about whether he has just crossed you, passed by you. When you say guzar gaya as such, it means khala. It always means death. But if you say guzar gaya in any other sense, you have to add some other words to clarify the issue. You can say, क्या वो आपके पास से गुजर गए हैं? Then it's a different story altogether. But when you say guzar gaye, it only means death. This is exactly the case of word khala. But this verse again has another following proof, like the previous verse. It's a fantastic thing how the Holy Quran deals with the issues and carries them to the only logical conclusion which is meant. In the first verse, the mention of mother of Jesus Christ completes the proof that he must have died. Here, the verse doesn't end by saying, قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِ الرُّسُلِ, but goes on. أَفَإِمْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ أَنْقَلَبْتُمْ عَلَىٰ أَعْقَابِكُمْ. How did khala take place? How could it take place? It says, Muhammad is no more than a prophet. All the prophets before him have passed away. So if he died or was murdered, what right have you got to renegade? The only two meanings of khala are death either by nature or by murder. No third meaning is mentioned. So when the Holy Quran positively proves the death of Jesus Christ upon earth, there is absolutely no possibility of his return to earth because other verses stand in the way. The Holy Quran says, وَحَرَامٌ عَلَىٰ قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا أَنَّهَا إِلَيْهِمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. What was the exact words, please? أَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهَا لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. لَا يَرْجِعُونَ, of course, but إِلَيْهَا is not mentioned.
I think أنهم لا يرجعون.
أنهم لا يرجعون. That's
I think so.
Okay. But let's refer to the Quran. Small mistakes appear because of lapse of memory, but we must correct them immediately. The meaning, anyway, is just this, whatever the wordings, that we have made it haram, forbidden, on any dwellers of cities or townships whom we have made to die, that they would never return back to earth again. And the other verses also indicative, and ahadith also indicative, that once somebody dies, he is not permitted to return. There is one hadith of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam concerning a shaheed of Uhud. It was Abdullah bin Rawaha, was it, or somebody else? Okay, whatever the name, it's just a small point. A companion of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was martyred on the day of Uhud. He saw his son rather depressed and oversaddened. Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam invited him to come to him and inquired from him, should I not tell you what happened to your father? He said, yes, please. He said, when he was presented to God, God inquired from him, what reward would you require from me for your martyrdom? He said, my reward is just this. I enjoyed martyrdom so much that I would like you to return me to earth so that I could be martyred again in your cause. Then again, and then again, and then again. This is the pleasure I want. This is the paradise which I yearn for. God said in answer, had I not made it forbidden for any soul on earth which has departed to ever return to earth, I would have accepted your request, not otherwise. It's a positive issue. No dead can ever return. Will be permitted to ever return. How would Jesus return? But on the other hand, the ahadith which speak on this subject are so sure, so positive, and there's so many of them who inform us of the future descent of Jesus, son of Mary. Now this is the dilemma which has to be resolved. On the one hand, the Quran is 100% positive that Jesus has died. He is not alive anymore. He died before the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. On the other hand, the Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself prophesies that he would return. Not he would return, but he would descend. So another word comes into the focus of our attention, that is nuzul. What does nuzul mean? Does it mean he would bodily descend from somewhere, or does it simply mean that he would come from God? If we can prove on the authority of the Quran and Hadith that the word nuzul is not necessarily in the meaning of some bodily descent, but most often than not, it only means something of high value which has come from God. So the same word is used about Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that we have made Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam to descend upon you. Anzalna. So when Anzalallahu fikum zikra rasula. Anzalna ilaykum zikra rasula. Allah has made zikran, a memory of Allah personified, as a prophet of God. So the word nuzul, remember, is used by God. And the mullahs do not interpret it as bodily descent. And the Holy Quran also speaks of some other things, to have descended from heaven. Like iron. The Holy Quran says, we made it to descend. And again, the Holy Quran speaks of the cattle, to have descended from heaven. Have you ever seen cattle to be rained upon earth, or the showers of iron from the heaven? Why this? And why only Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam is mentioned as having nuzul from heaven becomes obvious if you pay attention to the common factors of all these things. Among all the metals, iron has played the most beneficial role for the progress of mankind. There's no shadow of doubt about it. You may call gold a precious metal and iron is an ordinary thing, but what iron has done for the progress of man, no other metal can ever claim. And out of the animals, what cattle has done for man, no other animal can ever claim. That means nuzul, the word nuzul is used for the most beneficent thing, to give it a special treatment. God made to descend upon you many of his bounties, but this is the bounty we're talking about. So out of all the prophets, who was the most beneficent? Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam. So he's the only one who is mentioned to have made nuzul from heaven. Everything is consistent, well-meaning. So when Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam speaks of Jesus, of course he has the right to be referred to as nuzul in future, because the life and death of Islam will depend upon him. When he descends, then he will bring a new life and breathe a new life into the world of Islam. Otherwise, they would be on the verge of precipice. So this is how these ahadith should be interpreted, in accordance with the uses of the Quran, not in accordance with the fantasies of the mullahs. They like to build tales and live in tales and want you to also live in tales. But the Quran is a realistic book. It states, it has the power to state exactly what it wants to state. So the word nuzul should be read in the Quran and then applied to Jesus Christ. No problem is left. And there are other prophets before Jesus Christ who were described by the older scriptures to descend from the heaven, but they were born before the very eyes of the people of the time. And Jesus himself gave verdict that the promise of descent has been fulfilled in this man who is born. After that, the verdict of who else will you require? It's the issue of Jesus himself. If he says that the word descent does not mean a physical return of an older prophet, it only means somebody in his name will be reborn, then the matter is clinched. And I'm talking of the controversy regarding Elia, or Elijah is also called, an old prophet of God who was mentioned in the scriptures to have ascended to heaven sitting on a chariot. Now, Jesus has never been mentioned as having ascended to heaven sitting on anything. But he was, physically. And it was promised that before the advent of Christ, he would return to earth and announce to the whole world that the time of Jesus, not Jesus but Christ, is close. Be ready to accept him. So when Hazrat Isa ﷺ, the Jesus son of Mary, declared himself to be the Christ, the awaited reformer, the Messiah, the Jewish elders objected against this with reference to this scriptural prophecy. They mocked at his followers and said, all right, we'll believe in Jesus, okay, but produce the one who has to precede him. How he could come without the advent of one who was to precede him? He has not descended. When this question was raised before Jesus Christ, indicating Hazrat Yahya ﷺ, John the Baptist, he said, he is the Elijah who was promised. Believe it or not. He was the son of Zachariah. His name was Yahya. The name of the father of Elijah was something else. And Elijah, of course, was not Yahya. But Jesus gave the verdict. You believe it or not, this is how it happens. This is the religious terminology. So the promise has become fulfilled in the advent of Yahya. Now, would you agree with him or not? This is the question. If you agree with him, how could you disagree with Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, who uses the same argument exactly as has been effectively used by Jesus before him? So if you reject him, you have to reject the earlier Jesus. If you accept him, you have to accept this Jesus. So these are the connected evidences which prove that Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ is right, his interpretations, and he is always found to be true. How such an exceptionally true man be a false person? You understand the point? So the Advent has to be taken not literally, but spiritually. There's so much else to be said, but I know if we indulge in the detailed discussion of this question, the time will be over, or will not be over before the question will not be finished before the time will be over. Okay? Thank you.
Hazur, the two verses.
Yes, and the second?
And the second, قد أنزل الله إليكم ذكرا رسولا.
أنزل الله إليكم ذكر رسول. That was right. When you told me it was إليكم, not فيكم, I read it exactly like this, no?
No, I said أنزلنا إليكم.
أنزل الله إليكم. I said أنزل الله إليكم.
Yes, sir.
So that's right.
Yes.
I mean, your correction was right. It was not fi but ilah.
Yes.
But I was right that it was anzalallah, not
yes.
anzalna. Quite right. So the first verse which I recited, it has to be recited exactly as it is found in the Quran. Yes. قَدْ أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكُمْ ذِكْرًا. That's one verse, part of the first verse. But it is read, there is la written, so it should be run on. قَدْ أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكُمْ ذِكْرًا رَسُولًا يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ مُبَيِّنَاتٍ لِيُخْرِجَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. That is the first verse. It should be corrected. And the second verse was وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا. This much is exactly how I quoted it. But I said أَنَّهَا إِلَيْهِمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. It is not إِلَيْهِمْ. حَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا أَنَّهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. Right? Another question?
Yeah.
Now, shall we wait for somebody else, please?
Yeah, sure.
Then you can return.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
میرا نام عبد الحکیم ہے جی، پکاڑا سے میں حاضر ہوا ہوں۔ سوال میرے کی یہ تفصیل یہ ہے کہ حضرت مسیح علیہ السلام بنی اسرائیل کی طرف مبعوث ہوئے اور قرآن بھی ان کو یہی بتاتا ہے کہ وہ اسرائیلی نبی تھے، ان کی تبلیغ اسرائیل تک محدود تھی۔ اور یہودی علماء نے آپ پر فتویٰ لگایا کہ جھوٹے نبی ہیں تو ان کو قتل کر دیا جائے، ان کو سزا دی جائے۔ چنانچہ ان کے فتوے کے مطابق ان کو سزا دی گئی اور ان کو صلیب پر لٹکایا گیا۔ آپ کو صرف 13 افراد نے قبول کیا، جن میں سے 2 مرتد ہو گئے اور 11 آپ کے ساتھ رہے۔ حضرت مسیح علیہ السلام واقعہ صلیب کے بعد اس ملک سے ہجرت کرنے پر مجبور ہوئے اور وہ دوسرے ممالک میں گئے، اور جماعت احمدیہ کی تحقیق کے مطابق انہوں نے کشمیر کے علاقہ کا سفر کیا کہ وہاں پر وہ جو لوگ تھے وہ بنی اسرائیل تھے۔ تو انہوں نے اپنا کام کیا اور 120 سال کی عمر میں فوت ہو گئے۔ مگر آپ کی وفات کے بعد آپ کے ماننے والے منادوں نے، پادریوں نے بجائے اس کے کہ صرف اسرائیل تک اپنی تبلیغ کو محدود رکھتے، انہوں نے دوسرے ممالک کو تبلیغ کی۔
بات سنیں، آپ کا سوال جو ہے،
سوال میں ابھی عرض کر رہا ہوں۔
ہاں سوال
حضرت
کے آئیں،
مسیح علیہ
آپ تو
السلام کی تعلیم
ویسی تفصیلات بیان کر رہے ہیں جو ساری
جی جی۔
جماعت کو پہلے ہی معلوم ہے، مجھے بھی معلوم ہے۔
ہاں ٹھیک ہے جی۔
نمبر 1۔ نمبر 2، سوال تو
سوال آ رہا ہے جی آگے حضور۔
سوال تو انگریزی میں ہونا چاہیے تھا۔
ہاں، سوال یہ ہے کہ حضرت مسیح علیہ السلام کی تبلیغ
انگریزی میں ہونا
وہاں سے
چاہیے۔ یہ
نکل
زبان
کر
یہاں اس مجلس کی زبان انگریزی مقرر ہوئی ہے،
جی
اس لیے آپ اپنا سوال
ہاں سوال ابھی آ
اردو
رہا ہے۔
مجلس کے لیے محفوظ رکھیں۔
بیٹھ جاؤں میں پھر؟
بیٹھ جائیں یا کھڑے رہیں، آپ کی مرضی
نہیں،
ہے۔
میں سوال کر رہا ہوں کہ
سوال میں
آیا
بتا رہا
انہوں
ہوں کہ یہ انگریزی زبان کی مجلس ہے۔
ہاں
اس
میں
میں
اردو میں نہیں کر سکتا تو بیٹھ جاتا ہوں۔
ٹھیک ہے، یہی میں عرض کر رہا ہوں
اچھا ٹھیک ہے۔
کہ آپ بیٹھیں، مگر یہاں نہ بیٹھیں، راستہ خالی کر دیں۔ یہ انگریزی کی مجلس ہے، اس میں آپ ہمیں دوبارہ وقت لگانا پڑے گا۔ انگریزی میں آپ کے سوال کا ترجمہ کرنا، پھر جواب انگریزی میں دوں گا تو اردو میں پھر اس کا ترجمہ کرنا، ہمارے پاس وقت ہی بہت تھوڑا ہے۔ جزاکم اللہ۔
پھر میں لکھ کے بھیج دوں گا۔
ہاں یہ ٹھیک ہے۔ آپ کا سوال ہم کسی اردو مجلس میں MTA پہ پیش کر کے جواب دے دیں گے، ٹھیک ہے؟ جزاکم اللہ۔
Assalamu alaikum Hazur. My name is Mansoor Ahmed. My question is about Peshgoi Muslim Maud. And the Peshgoi Muslim Maud have Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam. The Peshgoi, God says, I give you one Muslim son. And Hazrat Muslim Maud Razillah Ta'ala anhu says, I swear to God, I am the Muslim. But I don't say after me there is no Muslim. There is a lot of Muslim after me. That's I need to.
Where does he write this? There are lot of Muslims after me. Muslim
So many, sorry.
Huh?
So many Muslim after me.
Where is it that written? You see, your question is supposedly based on a statement of Hazrat Muslim Maud. Correct?
Yeah.
And I have repeatedly instructed the Jamaat that whenever they refer to some statements of Masih Maud Islam or Khalifatul Masih's Awwal or Sani, whatever it is, they must bring the statement in writing before us. Otherwise, a misunderstanding on the part of the reader may lead to a wrong answer. Understand the point?
Yeah.
So I must be sure of exact words. Only then I can handle the question raised from the understanding of what he has written, not on the understanding what you have received.
Please.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you. Jazakumullah. The second case of a questioner to be seated. But this should be a common precaution taken by every Ahmadi who wants to ask questions. When he refers to the Quran, when he refers to Hadith, the books, he should bring that verse or the Hadith or the writings in writing. Okay? Please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Hi, my name is Johan. My friend Jasvir, she belongs to the Sikh religion. She showed me her picture of Guru Nanak, and she said that it is their God. She asked me that, how does your God look like? And I didn't know the answer, so how do I describe him?
At least you should have told her, our God does not look like Guru Baba Nanak. It's as simple as that. Moreover, she could not be a Sikh lady. It's impossible for a Sikh lady to believe that Guru Baba Nanak is a God, because the Sikhs all believe in the unity of God. They don't believe in Guru Baba Nanak to be a God other than God or God personified. So that poor Sikh lady must be misinformed. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Hazur.
Wa alaikum.
My name is Abdul Salam Siddiqui.
Yes.
Hazur, my question is about the migration. In Surah At-Tin, Wattino Zaitune Wature Sinina, it has been described about the migration of the messengers, like Hazrat Adam, Noah, Hazrat Noah, Moses, and the Hazrat Muhammad.
Where is it mentioned?
Surah, it has been in the first 3 verses.
Read the first 3 verses.
Wattine Wazaitune Wature Sinina.
What does it mean?
Wahazal Baladil Amin.
What does it mean?
Hazur, my question is not this one, but I'm just giving the reference.
Why do you give the wrong reference to your question? There is no relationship. Swallow your previous question and frame another one first, without reference to these verses, please.
Okay, my question is about the prophecy. It has been mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas.
I see you're talking of Surah Al-Qasas but mentioning Surah Teen. Fantastic. All right. What is that prophecy?
In Al-Qasas, verse 86, it has been mentioned about the return of the Holy Prophet, of their ordained return to their country where he was appointed. And it was...
Yes.
And it has given the similarity with Moses, that he was also returned to Egypt after 10 years. And similarly, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu.
Egypt? After 10 years before he was made a prophet, you mean?
No, before he made a prophet.
You are mixing things up, unfortunately. The return of Jesus, which was not promised during his first migration from Egypt, which was a personal migration.
Yeah, that's what I'm mentioning, Hazur.
But it was not promised that he would return to Egypt. And you say it was promised that he would return to Egypt.
So
where is it promised?
Hazur, I'm referring to...
You better read your scriptures more carefully before you ask a question, please.
Okay. All right. All right.
Right?
All right.
This is the third case of people sitting before asking the question. Please sit down.
Alaikum Hazur.
Welcome.
My name is Khurram Nazir. I'm from North York Jamaat.
Right.
I would like to present two questions to you.
Okay, please do.
My first question is regarding tawakkul.
Regarding?
Tawakkul.
Tawakkul, right?
I thought I understood the issue relatively well until I came across two incidents in Islamic history that to my untrained eye could be a contradiction of each other. The first one, of course, is Hazrat Abu Huraira, Raziyallahu ta'ala anhu. When he was really hungry beyond unbearably hungry, he used hikmat in asking other Sahaba the meanings of verses of the Holy Quran, hoping they would share some of their food with him.
That verse, which ultimately resolved his problem, which he referred to, does not mention tawakkul at all.
Well, no, just the issue about being hungry.
Okay.
Let me complete my question.
Yes.
That was the companion of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another companion of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, Hazrat Hakim Maulvi Nuruddin, Khalifatul Masih Awwal raziyallahu ta'ala anhu. When he was under similar situations where he was really, really hungry in a mosque in Lahore, I believe, he did not use any hikmat in asking anybody or hinting to anybody about his hunger. So much so that he almost refused the invitation of the man who eventually invited him for supper. I would think, to my untrained eye, that the two companions took a different approach to tawakkul.
Yes, I understand the question, but where is the issue of tawakkul involved in this?
I would like to think that it is the part where when you get hungry, you expect Allah to take care of your needs.
No, this is not the principle involved at all. When you get hungry, you should search for food.
Right.
And when you fail to search for food, fail to achieve the object of your search, and you are left with no hope whatsoever, then you have tawakkul. That's a different story altogether.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
So let's come to the case of Hazrat Abu Huraira first, Raziyallahu ta'ala anhu. He had made a vow never to leave the mosque because he had accepted Islam rather late in his life. And he had missed the most of the opportunity which was shared by other Sahaba to remain close to Muhammad Rasulullah and listen to his advice and his admonitions, etc., his words of his wisdom. So he was jealous in the right way, that they have learned so much, so to make up for the loss, I would never leave the mosque for any personal requirements except the call of nature, etc., etc. So he sat there. And because people knew that this man was sitting there with idle, not idle in the real sense, but without any job, without means of livelihood, so they generally brought some food and offered him, and it went on and on until Allah decided to teach him a lesson. And it was that moment when for 2-3 days nobody thought of giving him anything, and almost died of hunger. Allah gave him many lessons, in fact, in that. Number one, then when God has not guaranteed you that He would provide food from anywhere He chooses, then for you to remain shut in the mosque, closing doors of livelihood upon yourself, it has no license from Allah. Allah has been kind to you, gracious to you by fulfilling the requirements, but that doesn't mean that Allah is bound to produce food for you. That was one lesson delivered to him. And the second lesson delivered to him was that the verses of the Holy Quran are best understood by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. None else can understand the verses as well as Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could. And there are other lessons within the scope of that verse itself. So Hazrat Abu Huraira raziyallahu ta'ala anhu thought of a device. No, he was shy of begging. But there are some people who can't do anything but beg. So he devised a plan of begging whereby he could retain his honor and yet beg. So that plan was to use a verse of the Holy Quran and inquire about its true interpretation. And that verse, as I remember, if I remember correctly, was وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. That believers are such people that they prefer others' cause and need to their cause, the other requirements and need, to their own requirements and needs. وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Even if they suffer from paucity of means, shortage of means, even when they're poor, they don't have much, yet they sacrifice for the sake of others. This is one verse which is quoted by some. Another verse which is quoted in relation to the same incident is وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. The believers are such as feed the people. يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. Ala hubbihi has two meanings. Ala hubbihi refers to God. That only for the sake of Allah, for the love of Allah, yutimuna ta'ama, they feed the others with food. Whom do they feed? Yutimuna ta'ama ala hubbihi miskinam wa yatimam wa asira. Miskin, a person who does not beg, but who is poorly, and everybody should judge him by the state in which he is found. For yatiman, the orphan. Asira, who is a prisoner. So, if that is the verse which he used, then the meaning was more obvious. Because he was a prisoner, his own prisoner, of his own choice, for the sake of a high noble cause. He wouldn't leave the mosque, so it was a sort of prisoner. And miskin he wouldn't beg, and he was poor. So he thought, if I ask some elderly Sahaba the meaning of this verse, they would understand that I am in need. So when he said, inquired from one Sahabi, now some reporters are fond of mentioning Hazrat Abu Bakr first, then Hazrat Umar, then Hazrat Usman, as if at that time the order of the Khilafah was already settled. So I don't go to that detail, in my belief in these traditions, but the central substance is correct. The order may be different. But this is reported definitely that he inquired from some Sahaba, one after the other, as they entered and left the mosque. Would you kindly tell me the true meaning of this verse? And they started giving lecture on the meaning of the verse and making commentary. And when they had finished and left, Abu Hurairah said, look at them. They think I don't know the meaning. And then the incident was repeated one after the other, until he lost hope. Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was listening because his house was adjacent to the mosque. In the end, he came out, beckoned Abu Hurairah to himself. Abu Hurairah, what the meaning of this verse? I'll tell you. Go out and announce at the top of your voice that whoever is hungry, he should come. And also told him that I have received a bowl of milk from somewhere. But I will not feed you with that until I have others who are also hungry. Now, the heart of Abu Hurairah almost sank with that. But he had asked for it. He wanted a true demonstration of the true meaning. So he went out and announced. And unfortunately, he thought for himself, there are so many who came. Said, yes, we are hungry, we are hungry, we are hungry. And there was a procession of hungry people led by Abu Huraira who presented themselves to Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he sat there with a bowl of milk in front of him. You know, he arranged them, seated them in a certain order. He asked Abu Huraira to sit on his left and told other Sahaba to sit around him, starting from the right. Now, Abu Huraira's heart must be very strong not to have sunk completely. Because he knew full well Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always distributed from the right. And that is exactly what he did. He offered the milk to this man sitting to his right and said, drink. And the hungry man drank until he was filled to the brim. And yet milk was left in the bowl. And Hazrat Abu Huraira reports this. I was watching him, I said, look here, thank God some milk is left, but what would happen to when it passes through others? But Rasulullah didn't stop at that. He said, drink some more and drink some more. And he repeated this with everyone. Yet the milk was not finished. Until Abu Huraira's turn came at last. So he drank and drank and drank. And Rasulullah went on sitting some more, some more, some more. Until he said, Ya Rasulullah, the milk is flow out of my nails. Between my nails and the skin, the joint of the nails. They say the milk will begin to flow from out of my nails. So Rasulullah smiled and said, give me the milk. And yet there was milk and he drank it himself at the end. وَيُسِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَيُتِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. The other meaning of ala hubbihi is at a time of hunger when you fall in love with food, yet you prefer others to your own cause. So what a wonderful demonstration of this hadith and tawakkul. This is tawakkul.
Yes.
Rasulullah knew that the milk will not finish because he was doing it for the sake of Allah. To demonstrate to Abu Huraira, this is the meaning of yusiruna ala anfusihim or yutimul ta'am. So it did not finish until it reached Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It has many other lessons. He must have been the hungriest of all because he preferred every other person to him. And he waited for his turn in the end, at last. And he preferred every other hungry person to himself. And this was the miracle of tawakkul. So tawakkul happened here, not in the mosque where he was asking questions,
Okay.
So if you understand the meaning of tawakkul, this is how you should read the tradition and understand the meaning of tawakkul. In case of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal, it is related that he was promised by God that he would take care of his needs because he has left all his means for the sake of Allah when he reported to Masih Maud Islam. And even before, he had that special trend, a special relationship with God, whereby he would continue to sacrifice his things for the sake of Allah and hoping for the best from God. So God promised him, I will take care of you. And he did. And when Allah promises that he would take care of somebody, he demonstrates it. And a new concept of tawakkul begins from then on, which is not an ordinary concept to be shared by everybody. Like Hazrat Masih Maud when he was so worried about the impending death of his father the following night, when it was revealed to him that وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقِ. We swear by God and we bring witness, not to God, but وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ. We bring the sky, the heaven to witness. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ, and that which is to appear at night. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقُ, and what can tell you what it is which is going to appear during the night? Because his father was ill, so he understood the meaning immediately that the father is going to pass out during the same night. And he was worried. And he wondered what would happen to him after the father. It was then that he received his second wahi. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدَهُ? You are worried about the death of your father. Was he who provided for you? It is we. And we will always provide for you. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدَهُ? You are the servant of God, and Allah is sufficient for his servant. When this revelation came, as Masih Maud shuddered with the awe of this and repented that those small moments of doubt as to what would happen to him. He cried and sought forgiveness. And there and then he decided that he would have it turned into a signet ring and wear all his life to remind him that it is Allah who is sufficient for him. And this is the one he made, this is the one I'm wearing now. So this is tawakkul. Because this tawakkul it springs from a promise of God, which was fulfilled throughout his life and even afterwards in case of many others. So these two incidents have a message of tawakkul, but the way I have explained, and there is no contradiction whatsoever in it. Is there?
No, it's very clear.
Thank you.
Do we have time for another question?
Yes, please.
My other question is regarding the time of Jummah prayer. Some of us who work in the center of the city in Toronto, it's too hard for us to come up here. And most of the time we have to attend the Jummah prayer during our 1 hour time allotted for lunch. Most people in the Canadian and North American offices, they take their lunch anywhere between 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
12?
Between 12 to 2.
Yes.
Now, it has been a practice for us in downtown Toronto that we say our Jummah at 1 o'clock. Now, I understand in some of the winter nights, 1 o'clock could be before the time of Zawal of the sun.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
The Jummah prayer is the alternative of Zuhr prayer. And Zuhr time begins after the decline of the sun. Even if it has declined by 1 minute past, the time begins. So if it depends on the timing of the period, it is not necessary in every case, in the case of every city, that right at the strike of 12 o'clock, that will be the midday. Because the midday, the timings of every country are calculated region-wise with relation to the rise of sun, not in the whole region, because it doesn't rise at the same time in all the parts of the region. If in one time zone the sun rises at 5 o'clock in the morning, for instance, the point with reference to which they have calculated this would be just one point in that vast region. And the timings of the sunrise would vary from that point eastwards and westwards both. So this is not a question of a generalized answer, it's a question of finding out exactly where you are placed. And then it is possible that you are placed in a situation, in a geographical situation, where the sun may decline before 12 o'clock. And yet you also may be situated in a position where the sun may decline half an hour after 12 o'clock. So these matters have to be decided with reference to the scientists who know exactly the answers of timings. Then Jummah can be said as early as possible, but not by violating the law, the rule that it should be said after the decline.
Actually, that was what my question was, that we know we have to say it after the Zawal, but sometimes it's not possible because of the...
If the sun has declined, it's not a question of time now anymore.
Yes.
If the sun has declined, begun to decline, you can say your prayer.
Okay. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Mr. Little One, how are you?
Fine.
What's your name, please?
Abid Mirza.
Very good.
I have two questions.
MashaAllah.
One question is, how many times did Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw God?
Saw God.
Yeah.
Not with his physical eyes. The Holy Quran says, وَمَا كَذَبَ الْفُؤَادُ مَا رَأَى. His heart did not tell lies about what the heart saw. So it was the vision of the heart, and the word fuad is also applicable to the ultimate of human psyche, that is the ultimate concept of awareness. So that is the mind, we can say. So fuad can be translated both as heart and mind. So whatever he saw was a vision of the heart. It was not the vision of al-an, which is the eye itself. In other place, the word basar is used. That is also for understanding. So he couldn't, none on earth can ever see God with his naked eyes. It's impossible. Right? The second question.
My second question is, how can I see God?
Not with your naked eyes. Exactly in the same way as I have described, by imagining his attributes. See, what is vision after all? When you see somebody, you know what he is. And that is the interest in seeing something. To know God is only possible through understanding his attributes. God is Rabb, he is the Provident, he is Rahman, he is so beneficent. None can be more beneficent than him. He is most forgiving. He is oft repeating in forgiveness, he is Rahim. And there are so many other attributes. He is Ghafoor, he forgives, tolerates, he is Halim, he bears with you. So when you describe a person perfectly, as the Holy Quran has described God, then you begin to know him. So that is the only vision possible for you. Know him through his qualities, through his attributes. Right? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I have two questions. My name is
Canadian families are well trained in asking two questions at least. Invariably there are two questions. Yes? Please.
My name is Tajamal Hassan Kurtezi. My first question is, during Muharram, why do Shia people hate themselves?
Ask them. I see no reason whatsoever. Right? So inquire from Shias. The second question.
The second question is, why does Shia wear black clothes all the time?
Black clothes during Muharram?
Yeah.
Huh? All the time? He said all the time, but they don't do it all the time. They wear black because black is the mourning dress, normally understood by the world today, or at least by some Eastern countries. The black is the dress of mourning, it is the color of mourning. When you mourn somebody, when you lament the death of somebody, then you wear black color, any clothes in black. But this is not a universal behavior of man. Somewhere in Armenia, for instance, they wear white if somebody dies. I remember once I was walking on the top of the hill in Norway somewhere, when another visitor from Armenia came, and he immediately turned to me and said, I do sympathize for the loss of the dear ones you have had. I was amazed. I said, what do you mean I've lost no dear one? And why are you wearing the white? So when I inquired from him, what do you mean by this question? Then he said, in our country, this is the custom. We are dressed entirely in white only when somebody in the family has died, not otherwise. So please forgive me for this, but I thought somebody must have died because my turban was white, my clothes were white, my ashkan I was wearing was white. At that time it was not turban, it was the cap, white cap which I wear. So it is just a custom of people, and they're dressed in black, not in Muharram particularly, because they want to lament the martyrdom of some progeny of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Huzur. During the last Majalis-e-Irfan and this Majlis, we have received about 25 questions in writing. About 10 have not mentioned their names. So would you allow...
And only 15 minutes are left.
So
for reading the question and answering the question, 25 questions, right?
So what would you like?
What would you like? I'm all right, I'll leave at the time. The problem is yours, not mine.
I propose
you
that
should have started earlier.
I propose that we take up the questions of the questioners who have given their names and do whatever we can do in the following 15 minutes.
Still you will not be able to finish them. I propose that we do whatever we can to dispense with the questions, and then I carry them back home.
Right.
Or I carry them to America, and if there is another question answer session there, then I'll answer them there, and they can watch me on MTA.
Okay, so
all right?
So these questions...
If they don't have that MTA arrangement in their house, you can arrange some centers where my American tour is also covered. Or if it is not directly covered, I think it will be difficult. Direct coverage for America will be difficult because they have not organized like you have done it. So they should wait until I reach London. There I'll answer them in my question and answer sessions, and we'll tell you exactly when that video is to be displayed. And you can inform these questions, right?
Right, sir.
Thank you. But start with whatever you have. Maybe 1 or 2 questions are covered, or 3 maybe.
Okay, Huzur, the first question is from Amber Mirza from Ottawa. There is a reference in the Bible regarding the Tower of Babylon. Is there something in the Quran pertaining to that as well? Was there such a time of universal language and understanding as described there? If not,
now, what is the mention about the Tower of Babylon in the Bible? Read it first.
Huzur, the reference has not been given.
Reject this question. Let it sit like other questioners did.
Okay, Huzur, the next question is from Usama bin Yusuf Hashmi. Yes. Yusuf Hashmi Sahib has recently accepted Ahmadiyya.
Yes.
And his son is now researching this subject. He says, what is the status of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib? Is it a prophet, Mujaddid, or Imam Mahdi?
He is an Imam Mahdi and a subordinate prophet like Imam Mahdi would be. It is not a status of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, it's a status of Imam Mahdi, which is in question. We believe that Imam Mahdi is an institution, an office, which is a subordinate prophethood within Islam. So whoever would be the Imam Mahdi has to be a subordinate prophet. And we believe Hazrat Mirza Sahib is the Imam Mahdi, so naturally he is a subordinate prophet under the title of Imam al-Mahdi. Right?
Right, Huzur.
Thank you.
Then his next question is, if he is a prophet, what was the need of a prophet after the religion has been completed, perfected in Islam?
Because Imam al-Mahdi has been predicted by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself. And because, according to the Quran, the prophets did not come only to introduce a new law. They came also sometimes because people were dishonest in their trade relationship, in their commerce, in every way, selling and buying things. So the Holy Quran says, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا كَالُوا عَلَيْهِمْ إِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوا يُخْسِرُونَ إِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوا يُخْسِرُونَ. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Woe to those who are not honest in their measures or in their weighing things and do injustice. That is mutaffif. How they do it? وَإِذَا قَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. When they measure things or weigh things, which they buy, they see to it that they get the full measure, or even more if possible, just tawfoon. But when they weigh things which they are going to sell to others, then they always reduce the measure. And for that prophets came. And prophets came, according to the Holy Quran, for small things of moral, of moral failure of the people. Salih came for one purpose, Shuaib came for another purpose. Again, the prophets came to rehabilitate the morals of the people. Hazrat Lot came to fight against an evil behavior, conduct of a people which was so vicious, but in one area. So if the evil spreads everywhere, if the society, despite being religious, has become immoral to the utter extent, then the best answer to this is for God to send a prophet from himself, where the things reach a point where from there, if belated, then there can be no return afterwards. The people reach the end of their teether. They reach the end of the precipice from which they fall down to utter destruction. If Allah wants to save such an ummah, the ulama of that period simply cannot save them, because they are themselves largely responsible for that destruction. So if Allah does not send anyone from heaven, no one can save them. It's not a question of completeness of Sharia at all. It's a simple question of rearmament of morality. Or also, it's a question of correct interpretations. Now the questioner knows so well that the Holy Quran remains exactly the same as it was revealed to Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but the interpretations vary so much that by the same verse, some sects infer something else and other sects infer something completely different. The Shia say this verse indicates that Hazrat Ali was right and all the other Sahaba were hypocrites. And the Muslim Sunni scholars say, what do you mean you have gone mad? It doesn't mean that. So sometimes one is right, sometimes the other is right. What is the meaning of perfection left if these people are not corrected by divine authority at a time when things have gone completely out of hand? It is that reason, for that reason, that a divine reformer has to be sent not to change the religion, but to bring it back to its original pristine purity. So Masih Maud came as a prophet of God, subordinate prophet in Islam, not to add to Islam, but to remove all additions which are unauthorized. Right?
Right. Uzur, he has further asked that does the appearance of a new prophet not interfere with the status of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
It helps rehabilitate his true status, because he helps the coming of a prophet, the advent of a prophet, if it helps clarify the meaning of the Holy Quran so that it falls into step with the explanations of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it falls into step with the message of other verses on the same subject, then how can he oppose the mission of Hazrat Muhammad? He supports the mission.
Right. I would just mention his question, otherwise you have already sufficiently explained it. He says that, God forbid, does it not amounting to being disrespectful to the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, that he is the last prophet and another prophet appears?
No, this is not disrespectful, as we believe. A subordinate, perfect slave to him, obedient in every respect. So much so that he becomes a spiritual son of Muhammad Rasulullah. So much so that his advent is prophesied in the Quran as if Muhammad Rasulullah would come again. How can it be disrespectful? When the Holy Quran says, فَبَعْثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. The first advent of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah is mentioned, is completed here. What is left? If there was no one to come again. But the Holy Quran, Surah Jummah, continues by saying, وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. He would raise a prophet, this prophet who is mentioned, no other prophet is mentioned, among the people of the latter days. And then explains, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. If it was Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself, then there is not a question of man yashā. That means the advent of another person is prophesied in the name of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, and that honor would be granted to whomsoever Allah pleases. Yoti man yashā. Wallahu dhul fadlil azim. God has tremendous beneficence, or fadl means grace. He bestows things without limitation. So this verse again throws light on the same subject. It will be an insult to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah if somebody is not born in his ummah who has acquired a complete posture of obedience, so complete that Muhammad Rasulullah's name could be given to him to indicate complete agreement, not to indicate equality. So he must not misunderstand me. This complete agreement sometimes warrants the granting of the same name, but not equality. Like in case of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find in the Holy Quran, وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. It was not you who sent the handful of your pebbles upon the enemy. It was Allah who did it. Yadullahi fawqa yadihim. The hand of Muhammad Rasulullah is described Allah's hand. Innama yubayyi'un Allah. Innama yubayyi'un is a very strong and emphatic statement. It rules out any other person. It says they are only getting initiated at the hand of Allah, while they are getting initiated at the hand of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. So innama is an expression of hasar, which means it is only God, none else. So would Muhammad Rasulullah be a God? The only acceptable interpretation is that because he is a perfect slave of Allah, he doesn't do anything but what Allah requires. So his doing is referred to as Allah's doing. So the same logic will extend to Hazrat Masih Maud according to this verse of Surah Jummah. At his coming will be the coming of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In the sense that he will not give anything but what he receives from Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That is why he is not Al-Hadi but Al-Mahdi. That's one of the meanings of Al-Mahdi. The one who has been guided. Otherwise Hadis come, but this time it is a Mahdi who appears. But Mahdi is also in relation to God, which means that anyone who is guided by Allah, then he guides others, not before. That is again the same thing, he doesn't guide from himself. So it's not a disrespect, but the belief of the Sunnis is certainly a disrespect. They believe a prophet would come anyway. Despite Khatm al-Nabuwwat, beside La Nabi Abadi, a prophet must come, but that would be an old prophet borrowed from the Ummah of Moses. Is that not an utter disrespect? Is it not blasphemy against Muhammad Rasulullah? When the time of crisis comes, when there is a question of to live or die, to be or not to be, none of the slaves of Muhammad Rasulullah for his Ummah can have power to revive the Ummah back to life. An old Israelite prophet is preserved somewhere in heaven for such a time. He is brought back from there to do the needful for the revival of the Ummah of Muhammad Rasulullah. While the Holy Quran will protest, continue to protest. Rasulun ila bani Israel, Rasulun ila bani Israel. It has nothing to do with you. And yet Isa would come and say, no, I am going to save you. None of the servants of Muhammad Rasulullah can save you. Is this insult or is that insult which we believe in?
Right, Huzur. Huzur,
one last question and then...
right, Huzur. This question is from Nafis Ahmad Sahib.
From?
Nafis Ahmad Sahib.
Right.
He says, for renewal of a Pakistani passport or for an issue of a new Pakistani passport, when we approach the Consulate General, they issue a passport which shows our religion as non-Muslim. And if we do not...
I understand. It is very hurting to Ahmadis if something is written on their passport which is against their conscience and against their profession. It said it's non-Muslim, but he's a Muslim. But the question is, do they not call you non-Muslims?
Yes, they do.
They do. Does it really matter? If in the sight of Allah you are still a Muslim, if they call you non-Muslim, according to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, they are proved to be non-Muslims. So I don't know about other embassy staff, but the embassy staff of Canada has become non-Muslim by declaring you non-Muslim. That is the outcome. Your Iman, your Islam has not been hurt by the declaration of the ambassador of Pakistan. Anybody. What is he to decide on religious issues? Who is he? But he violates the instruction of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah who warns that you do not call a Muslim a non-Muslim, or thereby you will become yourself non-Muslim. So why are they so much worried about their being non-Muslim? His writing cannot convert you from Islam to non-Muslim. But Muhammad Rasulullah's verdict does convert him from Muslim to non-Muslim. That's all. Thank you.
Right, Huzur. Jazakumullah ta'ala.